This podcast contains our own personal views not associated with any organisation. Coronial contains descriptions of death inquests that may be graphic and disturbing to some listeners. Discretion is advised.
Hi everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Coronial. My name's Emma.
I'm Georgie.
And I'm Alice.
And today we're going to discuss the inquest into the death of Nicholas Banfield. He was 23 years old at the time of his death in July 2016. I swear this is about the fourth or fifth 23-year-olds.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
It's
Going
just
on
the age.
I was you a backpacker? Like,
No.
This is the other theme that we keep hitting on.
Not a backpacker, not English.
Okay, yeah.
But like every time I'm doing these up, I'm like 23.
Luckily, yep, my next case is not a 23-year-old, so we're good.
Neither is mine.
So Nicholas grew up in Tasmania and he was an avid sailor since he was 7 years old. He had a lot of sailing qualifications, including a degree in naval architecture, and he skippered a whole variety of sea craft and raced in numerous ocean competitions. He also enjoyed long sailing voyages and had recently completed a sailing voyage from Hobart to Vanuatu and then back to Sydney.
That was a long trip.
I know. I have no idea how long it would take, but decent distance. Mm-hmm. So at the time of his death, Nicholas was working at a shipyard in Sydney. So on the afternoon of the 1st of July 2016, after Nicholas had finished his shift at work, he sailed his family boat, which was called the Aquarius, to pick up his girlfriend from Glebe Wharf in Sydney. The Aquarius was an 8.4 metre vessel which Nicholas had been sailing for many years, so he's very familiar with the vessel.
How many times have you gone on a date where the guy's picked you up in his boat?
I know, right?
Sorry.
Yeah, like that sounds fun and glamorous.
But you don't know what the boat looks like.
And also then you're stuck on the sea with this random person on their boat.
Well, I mean, they're dating, so they're not random.
What? But if it was a first date, that's a red flag.
At no point am I going on a first date with someone being like, yeah, no worries, I'll meet you at the
I'll pick you
wharf.
up in my boat.
Sorry. Anyway.
That's fair. So Nicholas and his girlfriend sailed to Middle Harbour where they anchored at a mooring. The pair then cooked and ate nachos on the LPG stove in the cabin in the boat and then had an alcoholic beverage each.
Is the nachos vital to this story or was it just like a random fun fact?
I liked that it was in there, so I included it.
Excellent. No, I love the random bits and bobs that we get out of these to get a sense of these people and themselves.
Yeah, nachos on a boat.
Perfect.
Like, why not?
It's a great dinner.
So obviously it was July, so it was a cool night. So it appears that the stove was turned back on to keep the cabin warm during the night.
Oh, I can imagine that is not generally encouraged.
No, because it was cold, all the hatches were also sealed shut.
Oh, no.
Including to the below deck entrance area. So it was an enclosed cabin.
With live gas just floating about.
Yes.
All right.
Do we know why they were sleeping in the boat rather than going to a house?
I mean, it's a family boat, so I assume it's something they probably did.
Yeah, okay.
And they're at a mooring. Is it near land?
They didn't say, but I would assume it's near land. So, yeah, as I said, the stove was turned on at some point during the night and everything was closed up. So not much is actually known of what happened after dinner. So Nicholas's girlfriend remembers her heart racing and feeling really sick and confused. The couple may have rested and then lost consciousness on the bed.
Is that similar to what they described in, what was the lady's name who lived in Victoria for the household hazards episode?
Yeah, I've forgotten her name.
Yeah, me too. But like, didn't they say that those were also signs of toxicity as well?
Yeah, it is. So it was not until about lunchtime on the 3rd of July 2016. So remember they went out on the 1st of July 2016.
Wow.
So it was not until about lunchtime on the 3rd of July that Nicholas's girlfriend was able to regain a sufficient level of consciousness and she was able to phone for assistance.
That is amazing that she woke up at all.
Well, I reckon the LPG ran out. Yeah?
No.
No? Oh, okay.
She's just got some superhuman ability.
So she called her mum and she sounded very confused apparently on the phone, as you would, because you've just woke up.
And you've lost a day and a half.
Exactly, and you don't know what's going on. So her parent contacted the New South Wales police. The water police and a police helicopter were immediately dispatched, and the police were able to triangulate the call in order to locate where the boat was actually located.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So they didn't have an exact location, but they were able to work it out from that data. So at the same time, Nicholas's employer organised to, and I'm not sure how Nicholas's employer became aware.
You said it was the first to
This
the
is
third.
the third. Yeah.
Yeah, but like was the first a Saturday or something, and now the third is a Monday, and he's like not shown up to work or something.
Oh, that could potentially be the case. I'm not sure. But obviously he knocked off work on the first.
Okay. But yeah, maybe he's not shown up to work or something.
I'm not sure what the situation is there. But in any case, his employer organised 2 of his workers to try and locate Nicholas's boat. And those workers were actually the first to arrive at the Aquarius. They arrived shortly before the water police, who were carrying the paramedics with them as well. So the paramedics went on board. They commenced treatment of the girlfriend, and she was taken to hospital. But unfortunately, Nicholas had already passed away. An autopsy was performed on Nicholas. There were no injuries or suspicious marks, no disease or abnormalities. Toxicological testing showed a carbon monoxide level of 60% carboxyhemoglobin saturation, which is considered to be in the lethal range. No other alcohol or drugs were detected. So the report concluded that Nicholas died from carbon monoxide poisoning caused by the incomplete combustion from the burner in a sealed cabin.
Yeah, right.
Nicholas's girlfriend also suffered serious complications related to carbon monoxide exposure, but the coroner didn't go into any detail of what those complications were, apart from the fact that they were quite severe.
You said his carboxyhemoglobin percent was like 60 or something? Yeah, sorry. It was like, I swear it's meant to be like less than 1%. And yeah, normal results are less than 1.5%. Yeah. Could be as high as 9% in smokers. But yeah, like, again, 63 is ridiculous in comparison to normal.
Yeah.
And did they say they didn't mention her levels?
No, they didn't go into any of her medical information at all in the coroner's report. So the coroner commented that it's very difficult to understand with any certainty the number of deaths attributed to accidental carbon monoxide poisoning in Australia each year, particularly in small areas and cabins. And I think it was difficult because sometimes, suicides and things.
Yeah.
It's going to cloud whether it's accidental or not. And yeah, so it's very, very difficult to sort of pinpoint that. But that said, the coroner noted that there's a significant potential risk in the leisure industry as gas appliances are often installed in recreational vehicles like boats and caravans, used for things like cooking, water heaters and refrigerators. And if these appliances are not installed correctly or they're not used properly, or there is no adequate ventilation, as in this case, there is a serious risk, especially in smaller areas.
Yeah, true. A cabin's going to be quite small in comparison to like your average room in a house or something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
I just looked up. It was Sonia that had the gas heater.
Yeah.
Her carboxyhemoglobin was 64%.
Yeah, so about the same. So again,
Yeah.
and I was thinking the girlfriend's might have been lower because she might have, in the period of time from getting rescued to getting to medical help, she would have been breathing something really lid off. So hers might not have been nearly as dramatic.
Potentially, we don't know though.
And clearly it wasn't at lethal levels.
Because she was alive.
But I'm really interested in how the physiology of that works.
Yeah, and it's actually something they were like, we can't explain how she didn't die.
Yeah, right.
Very lucky.
I wonder if there was like a position in the boat that therefore like became a pocket that...
No, because I'll talk about it a little bit later. I don't think that, because they just don't know what happened.
Yeah, true.
Obviously,
They don't know
inside
where
the boat.
they were.
Nah,
Yeah,
they don't know any of that because no one was conscious.
fair.
So as part of the inquest, they did a reenactment of the incident. It was done by the Fire Investigation Research Unit of Fire and Rescue New South Wales. So the test actually took place on the Aquarius.
Yeah, okay.
Using the stove and simulating all the other conditions on the boat the evening of the incident. So the test showed that carbon monoxide levels increased very quickly when using an LPG cooker in the enclosed cabin. So on the calculations, a person's carboxyhemoglobin levels would have reached 30% after about 98 minutes and 60% after 152 minutes.
And so I assume there's some kind of regulation around like using these indoors as heaters on a boat.
So
Okay, your eyes tell me that maybe
Yeah,
that's
we'll
not the
get there.
case, though.
We'll get there.
Okay, because I'm like, well, yeah, why were they doing this then?
It's honestly probably something they've done before. Like,
Yeah,
there's just
and lived through.
some other, maybe they usually cracked a window or whatever it is.
Or they'd just recently replaced the seals on all the doors and therefore they worked better, but previously they were all pretty open and so there was airflow.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, that's not something
You know
they
what I mean?
sort of
Like,
go
but like
into.
on a boat, like how tightly does all the doors and windows normally seal?
Wouldn't be.
I wouldn't have thought that well, but like,
Mm.
yeah, anyway.
So, according to expert evidence, a saturation of 20 to 40% would cause severe headache, fatigue, lethargy, dizziness, and a range of other symptoms. So,
And those symptoms, I guess, if you're like going to sleep as you turn it on and then 90 minutes later,
Yeah.
you're kind of already in like a bit of
you're
a
already
deep sleep.
asleep.
Yeah.
That you're not experiencing said headache, lightheadedness, etc. You're just experiencing to the unconscious.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
okay.
right. So the Aquarius did not have a carbon monoxide detector, which most recreational boats don't have. So during the test, a carbon monoxide alarm was used, just, to test the conditions, and it sounded after 4 minutes. of
Oh,
exposure.
wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's how quickly the carbon monoxide was rising
Yeah, wow.
in the cabin. So the coroner commented that with the levels that there were of carbon monoxide in the cabin, it is likely that Nicholas died sometime before he was discovered. And as I said before, he's also said it's very difficult to understand how Nicholas's girlfriend survived. They just don't quite understand. She was obviously unconscious for over a day.
Yeah, I'm still just like perplexed also.
Mhm.
Can I circle back to where does one buy a carbon monoxide detector from? Is this like a Bunnings thing? Or?
I think it is.
I think you
yeah.
can.
Okay. I've never even contemplated the need to go buy one.
So Nicholas's employer gave evidence at the inquest because he had been working in the maritime industry for about 35 years, and the company was the largest employer of recreational boat repairers in New South Wales. So the employer was of the view that installing carbon monoxide alarms was achievable and practical. I mean, it sounds like it's a fairly inexpensive thing to do, and why not? However, he was finding it very difficult to persuade recreational boat owners to install them because it's not a legal requirement. He told the inquest that his company saw about 3,500 boats per year, and that since Nicholas's death, which was about a year before the inquest, he had asked everyone if they would like to install a carbon monoxide detector on their boat, and only 2 had decided to do it. Out
Wow.
of 3,500.
That's
Wow.
pretty low numbers.
That's
and did he
extremely...
go into like, I recommend this because you could die?
I don't know how far when he was asking people.
Yeah, whether it was just like, would you like this or not? It's not legal.
It could have been. But he did know that there is obviously a cost to install and maintain them. But the employer did make a large financial commitment and made it known to his customers when he was offering this to them that he was prepared to fit the alarms at a reduced cost. But obviously they're still going to have to pay for and maintain the actual alarms. And so most people were like,
No, not needed.
nah, I'm good, thanks.
I'm impressed by the employer. That like seems like a really genuine thing to do.
Yeah.
So that is really nice. But yeah, disappointing that even with the attempts to persuade people, it didn't result in any change.
Yeah, it was clear from reading the report that this death really impacted the employer.
Yeah.
And they sort of became really passionate about trying to advocate for legislative change and for, just making sure that people install alarms on their boats. And I think it was to the point where he even said that he was just going to kind of do it or like refuse to repair
Unless it was
boats
done.
unless they agreed to have an alarm installed. And then apparently he went to other repairers and suggested that they did the same. And I'm kind of like, from a competition standpoint, oh, that's a little bit dodgy.
Yeah, that's not going to work out.
Yeah. Maybe don't do that.
Yeah, that's going to get you in trouble.
Yeah, be careful. But like, it's hard when it's coming from a good place.
Yeah, without
Yeah.
the legislation, I can't see other better ways of doing it. But unfortunately, it's probably just going to detrimentally affect his business more than anything. Which, if you're out of business, then it's not making change either.
Yeah, that's right. So the coroner made a recommendation to the Minister for Roads, Maritime and Freight to consider the introduction of legislation to mandate carbon monoxide alarms in all recreational and leisure craft and vehicles with sealable cabins. and to make sure that they will conform to an appropriate minimum standard as well. The coroner also made recommendations to the Transport for New South Wales to convene a working party with other relevant organisations to consider ways of further promoting community education about the dangers of carbon monoxide poisoning. So such initiatives that he recommended would include local public education campaigns, safety pamphlets, and strengthening the safety message about the issue in online material for those applying for their boat licenses.
Yeah, nice.
As well, just to make sure that they're aware of the risks of potential
Seems
carbon
fair.
monoxide poisoning. Yeah. So since the inquest, this inquest was handed down in late 2017. So what's that, 5.5 years ago? Something like that now. I couldn't find anything online to indicate that any legislation had been passed or even tabled in New South Wales relevant to carbon monoxide alarms at all. I did find a fact sheet published by the New South Wales government about carbon monoxide gas and leaks in vessels. So it talks about the danger of carbon monoxide poisoning and symptoms to look out for and like what to do if there's a leak. And at the bottom, there's a list of tips to reduce the risk. And the fourth tip down is to install a carbon monoxide detector alarm in your boat.
So do you remember what 1, 2, and 3 are?
Oh, it was something like make sure you crack a window. Or something like that. Yeah, it was very like basic. And then it was like the fourth one down was like,
but true, like if you've not got an enclosed space, you're less likely to be harmed. So I can see why like making sure you're not in a tightly enclosed space might be more beneficial than the alarm itself. But yeah. Number 4
sort of
still
like,
seems
it's like
low.
down the very bottom of the page. They're like, maybe consider
doing this.
installing carbon monoxide.
Yeah, because like if it's a leak rather than you actively having the heater on,
exactly,
you might not even know.
You don't even know that it's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that was a short one. I didn't realise how short that was going to be, but
that's all right.
Yeah, I just thought it was an interesting one because it's kind of weird to think about the fact that someone else survived this incident, but they still don't know what happened.
Yeah, it's still
like a complete mystery of what happened. All they know is that someone died. They had 60% carboxyhemoglobin levels. And yeah, he was obviously deceased. And then it sort of go into how far prior to them finding him, they thought he had passed away. But I think they said it was pretty...
Well, they said in 90 minutes or whatever, they would have been suffering significant side effects. So I would have thought...
But it's just, again, it's still the fact that his girlfriend was still alive.
And they did these tests and showed how quickly all of this stuff happened. And yet... She's and so there was never any question that she had anything to do with it?
No.
Yeah, okay, cool.
No, she, as I said, she suffered severe complications.
Yeah, fair.
Herself.
Did she, when they found them, had she opened any of the windows? Like, I'm just wondering, like, potentially there was a window next to her side of the bed.
Yeah.
And she had, like, in a haze, had opened it slightly and... like her face was next to it and that's how she survived because she was getting some oxygen in, but...
They didn't go into any of that. I think she was way too out of it.
I'm just thinking even like just if they did a look over of the boat to see what state it was in.
Yeah, so I'm just going back. It says it was a cool night. All the hatches were sealed shut, including the entrance and below deck area. So I'm assuming that's how it was found.
Yeah.
Everything was sealed shut.
Yeah. Maybe she's just got a superpower.
It's just that thing, like, sometimes you're like, you shouldn't have survived this situation. There are just some circumstances where that happens.
And it's not like she necessarily did anything herself to survive, like she didn't have to cut off her own arm to get out of there.
No, it was...
I find it interesting that, because he'd been so well educated in that industry... Nicholas, the deceased gentleman, that they left the boat in that condition without realising. Like, that's the other part for me is, like, questioning should they have known better feels a bit harsh. But I also think, like, if you were that well-versed in all of that, then you probably should have known that leaving the gas on in an enclosed space wasn't going to be a good idea. So I'm interested by that decision-making as well.
Yeah, it went into the inquest how he usually was quite vigilant with those sorts of things. So
just a mistake.
Just a mistake.
Yeah, right.
And again, they just sort of say it looks like the LPG gas stove was turned on. They say it looks like. So that language is sort of like, was it turned on? Was something leaking? Like...
Right. So she didn't necessarily state we turned it on when we
No.
went to bed.
No.
Okay.
They
yeah,
just sort of
right.
said it, that seems to be what happened.
Like
And
they've used it as a
looks like
heater.
it was turned on. It could have been, and I don't know what those things look like, but it might have been that the LPG gas was just had ran out.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, that's where the source was.
Yeah, okay.
Or maybe it was
Fair.
leaking. And
Yeah,
so they
more
didn't
than
know
they
that
thought.
it was turned
Yeah,
on. So
but it
that's why
makes
they
sense
closed
because they
the
were sort of
lights.
saying it was a cold night, so it would make sense that they turned it on for the heating.
Yeah.
But again, it does seem like an out of character thing since he was very familiar with this boat. I think they said that he'd been using it since he was like 16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, right.
yeah. But yes, that's today's episode. Thanks very much for listening.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed.
Bye.
Bye.